Of all the impressive things you've done here in your time, I think one of the most impressive is how you've developed guys that have stayed in this program that's so rare in college football. I mean, and then you talk about this season, like getting Drew Allar and Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton. I mean, if you would have told me all three of those guys were coming back at the end of last year, I wouldn't have even believed it, right? And to be sitting here, and clearly that comes from relationships and that these guys trust you and trust this program and want to be here. How do you actually make that happen, where you keep some of these players here for a long period of time when it seems like they're not going to stay or will go to the NFL? And what do you attribute it to? Is it the relationship piece?
Yeah, and Denai.
Yeah, so
and
many more.
Zane and Zachy, right? I think it's the culture that we've built here, right? There's a culture of, like we talked about, a transformational relationship, a true relationship where they know I care about them and their futures. The reality is every single player on our roster is probably walking away from a little bit of money because they appreciate what this experience is like, and it has to be that way. And I think, when you look at transfer portal, knock on wood, because it's not over yet, but we're averaging about 4 to 6 guys a year. And some programs are averaging 46 a year. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of the relationships, or a lot of the relationships and what you talked about, and their experience, and them and their parents valuing that experience. But it's also, I think, a philosophy. Mm-hmm. Some programs, which I totally get, are saying that we're going to spend all of our resources in the transfer portal, and we're going to try to retain our roster, number one, guys that we know, guys that we have developed. The transfer portal is great, but you don't typically know exactly what you've gotten until they show up, and that's a little scary.
Yeah, revenue sharing is coming to college sports, and it seems like any moment now. And I'm sure that you've been doing a lot of research on how, I mean, it's essentially a salary cap NFL model, and how you actually break up the money between quarterback and defensive end and left tackle, and what are the ways you're preparing for revenue sharing in this staff? We're going to talk to Andy Frank later, who I know is your general manager, about how you guys are preparing for it. But how have you prepped for that to come to college sports?
Yeah, I think the first thing is the point you just made. Having Andy Frank as our general manager has been with me the whole time, all the way back to Vanderbilt. So he's been with me over 15 years, going on 16 years, I think. It helps that he has a engineering degree from Princeton, similar to a psychology degree from East Stroudsburg, right?
Same sphere.
But then studying it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how does the NFL put it? The money that they have, how do they break it up, and to what positions? Those things are important. But then also, again, if you're a developmental program, making sure that, okay, these high-end guys that are leaving, that we feel like we got that next group that are going to slide into these types of roles. Talking to a lot of other colleges that you feel like you have relationships with that maybe aren't in the footprint, that you don't necessarily compete with for recruits and things like that. That's helpful to have those types of relationships. And then obviously the NFL, talking to guys in the NFL, talking to people in Major League Baseball, all these different resources that have been through it. There's value in all those types of things.
Yeah. One of the things I remember from when I played for you here for a couple of years, but just watching you since then, is how detailed you are in everything, and how it's kind of taught me that, like, everything matters. Everything from how you guys are playing defense on third down to, like, the cleanliness of the bathrooms and all those little things that also, like, average people wouldn't think about. What's an example of something that you feel like you're, like, obsessed with in this program that most people would never think that a head coach would be thinking about that kind of stuff?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I'm kind of obsessed with everything, and that's where it's so important to hire good people, because, like, my thing is, I'm going to tell you when I hire you, I'm a micromanager, right? And I think as long as people are honest with you on the front end, then this is what you signed up for, right? You can't complain on the back end. But my thing is, I'm going to be a micromanager, and I'm going to be obsessed until the person has showed me that they're going to do the job at a level that we need it done. Then I'm going to walk away, because let's be honest, I can't be running all the different departments. So that's where hiring really good people is very important. And then at that point, you let them run with it. But I think the thing that probably over the last probably 10 years that I've really tried to spend my time as the head coach is how can we create the best teaching environments? How can we create the best learning environments? And when I can see a PowerPoint or when I can give feedback to a assistant coach or a coordinator at the end of a meeting on something he may have considered, we've brought teaching specialists, people that go around the country and teach you how to be the best teacher possible and videotape our classrooms or videotape our meeting rooms and give us feedback of how we can grow. That's probably the thing that I've really kind of clung on to in the last couple of years of how can we create the best environment for teaching and learning as possible, because ultimately we're overpaid phys ed teachers, right? That's what we are.
I wanted to ask about Drew Allar, and his development's been amazing over the last few years, and now returns as, if not the best, one of the best quarterbacks in college football. What have you seen from him just over the last few months of being here now, like undisputed, played extremely well, but I'm sure there's still things that you want him to get better at. How do you evaluate him right now and how he's been the last few months?
Yeah, just, again, very similar to what we talked about the program, right? His freshman year, really starting all the way back to as a recruit, right? When, he's kind of an old school throwback recruit where he just kind of kept moving up the rankings and getting better and better. Did the same thing his freshman year. Took a significant step his sophomore year in terms of understanding the offense, knowing how to get the playmakers the ball, eliminating negative plays and protecting the football. He's done that as good as pretty much any quarterback in the country. Leadership, being a leader by example, and then working more into more of a vocal leader last year and continuing to grow in these areas. And then also, again, back to what we just got done talking about, the head coach and the quarterback better have thick skin, because there's loud voices, and the loud voices are usually the minority, but they're real loud. And he's grown in all those areas, and I see him doing the same things right now, taking steps in all these areas for this year, for us to have the type of year that he wants us to have, and for him to have the type of year that he wants to have.